have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need?
Need one.
I don't know.
Let's hold that, let money. Don't take it.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru, this is Margaret Kimberly. All out on Saturday, November 4th for the 15th annual Black People's March on the White House, sponsored by the Black is Back Coalition. Drop the charges on Omali Yeshitela, chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, leader of the Uhuru movement. On July 29, 2022, the FBI launched pre-dawn raids on 7 properties of the Uhuru movement in 2 cities using assault weapons, flashbang grenades, and drones. The chairman and 2 others, known as the Uhuru 3, have been indicted by the U.S. government and face federal charges. Chairman Yeshitela has said, "The FBI wants to put me on trial for fighting for black freedom. Put the colonial state on trial, we will win." An attack on free speech for Chairman Omali Yeshitela is an attack on everyone's free speech. March under the banner of the anti-colonial free speech movement. Register for the Black People's March on the White House on Saturday, November 4th at blackpeoplesmarch.com or go to handsoffuhuru.org. Drop the charges against the Uhuru 3 and power to the people.
Uhuru.
Uhuru comrades, Uhuru everybody, welcome to today's very special Hands Off Uhuru Coalition Fight Back meeting. We just really want to appreciate everybody for being on today. Very excited for today, as you just saw. We want to appreciate Sister Margaret Kimberly for lending her voice for this call to November 4th. We are here to build for the Black People's March on the White House on November 4th, as you saw. And today we have a very special program for you all today with some very special guests. And so I just want to introduce myself. My name is Mwezi Odom, and I have the honor of serving as the chairperson of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa counteroffensive, the counteroffensive that is waging a real fight back on, against the FBI attacks on the African People's Socialist Party on July 29, 2022. So I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint to give everybody just some more information about why we are here and why it is important that we recognize that today, September 11th, is not just any other day. And we want to take an opportunity to welcome and appreciate some of our guests. So today's webinar is titled 50 Years After the US Coup in Chile, Build the Anti-Colonial Free Speech Movement, Forward to the Black People's March on the White House, November 4th. So again, as part of building for this march, we want to bring forth some of the members of our Fight Back Coalition. We're going to be speaking with Comrade Brother Edelso Moret of the network, of the Defense of Humanity Network. We're also going to bring forth Jesús Rodriguez-Espinoza, who is an editor with Orinoco Tribune. We're going to be talking about the anniversary of the brutal US-backed coup against the progressive Allende government of Chile on September 11th, 1973, what many call the other September 11th. And because of the urgency of what is happening and the continued attacks on the people, we had to make time to hear a report from Reverend Keyanna Jones, who is joining us here from Community Movement Builders, to give us an update on Stop Cop City following the outrageous indictments of more than 60 of their activists on bogus RICO charges. So I want to appreciate everybody for being here. And if you know somebody who's supposed to be here, tell them to go to handsoffruhuru.org right now. On the homepage, they can register for this meeting. And if they're on, and you can also catch us on YouTube, we are live, everybody. So again, this is a recorded meeting, and we are asking everybody, if you don't want to have your cameras on, please keep them closed, but there will be a time when we can interact with each other later on in the program. So again, this is a call for everybody to come out for November 4th. We understand that this is a response to us letting the US know that they made a huge mistake. As the chairman said, they picked up a big rock and they dropped it on their own foot when they decided to wage war on the African working class on the African People's Socialist Party on July 29, 2022. Next slide. So I want to salute Chairman Omalia Shatella, who we understand is the main target of this attack. Because again, Omalia Shatella, with his over 50 years of work, is representing the vanguard of the African working class. And we understand that this attack on Omalia Shatella is an attack on all people, because we understand that we are fighting for the right to free speech. So go ahead right now. I'm going to keep saying it. Share this event. We are calling on everybody to not only register for November 4th, but we have to get this information out. So again, thank you all for being here. We have a goal today to raise $500 towards the overall fund, the legal fund for the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. We'll be doing a series of these webinars to mobilize and build for November 4th. So we have a very modest goal towards our overall goal of phase one, which is $277,500, phase one of our goal. With your support, everybody, we are already 88% close towards our goal. We have raised over $243,000 since July 29th, and that could only have been done with the people. So we want to appreciate you all and continue to go to handsoffruhuru.org/donate. Tell a friend, tell somebody to match your donation, tell somebody to become a sustaining member. And if you need to put a pledge in the chat, let us know how much you want to pledge to be a part of this fight back. So just a quick update, we want to give everybody that those of you who may know that part of this, part of raising these resources is to build the legal defense for this fight back. And we have a really bad legal team, and we want to salute Attorney Leonard Goodman, who wrote a brilliant motion to dismiss, which was responded to, by the Department of Justice, and we wrote back. And here we are on September 28th. The court has agreed to oral arguments. So if you're in the Tampa area, or if you want to get to the Tampa area, we encourage you to get there on September 28th. That's a Thursday. I believe it's at 9 a.m. You want to get there to the courthouse to come and show your support for the Uhuru 3 on the ground at these oral arguments that is coming up later on this month. So you'll find more information about that on our website. So again, we are here with the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. This is a call for anybody who was not at the July 8th founding meeting of the coalition to consider joining this coalition. This is a fight back that reaches across all political spectrums. The people who are taking all of our demands to the White House, all of our demands to anybody who was running for, presidential election, every single demand of the people led by the anti-colonial forces, led by the oppressed. This is what this coalition is. And I want to salute some of our members who are actually on this call right now. I see one of them just joined, that's Sister Belinda Parker Brown. I want to acknowledge Brother Edelso, who was one of our guests, Jesús Rodriguez as well, Mark Friedman, Jesse Todd. Also want to appreciate Javon Tinsley, who was a new member of the coalition, Uhuru Comrade, and Benjamin Prado of Unión del Barrio. These are some members who have taken the extra step to complete their membership process with the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. You can learn more about this by going to handsoffuhuru.org/coalition. So that's what I wanted to say about that. And we will continue to bring you programs like this featuring members of the coalition and touching on the events that are happening around the world. So again, this is a call for us to build the anti-colonial free speech movement. This is what the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition is about. And we are building towards the November 4th, 15th annual Black People's March on the White House. This has been led by the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice and Peace, for Peace and Reparations for over 14 years. This 15th year, we want everybody to show support and to build this march to its extreme, and to let the White House know that we will not be silenced. So we are thanking everybody for being here on today. I have the wrong slide up. That's for today's meeting. So you're in the right place, everybody. And on the right side there, you can see many of the other organizations, over 40 organizations who have united with building this anti-colonial free speech movement. So later on in this program, you will get a chance to learn more about the coalition's goals. We will hear about the call for November 4th. You will learn about the demands. And we want you right now, before we go any further, to put in the chat that you are going to be there on November 4th, that you are going to build for November 4th, be there in Washington, D.C. Let us know in the chat so somebody can follow up with you. And if not, go right now to blackpeoplesmarch.com. blackpeoplesmarch.com and register for the November 4th mobilization on the White House. Right on, Lisa Davis says she's going to be there, and I know you will be there because she's the vice chair of the Black is Back Coalition, and she's also a co-MC for tonight's event as well. And we also will be making a call for everybody to get on the bus, so you will learn more about that in today's webinar, and we'll have more information about that as well. So without further ado, I want to jump right into our program. I want to go ahead and also bring up some of the co-MCs of today. We have with us Sister Lisa McKimba Davis, who is joining. Uhuru, comrade.
Uhuru, Black is back.
Black is back. Hands off Uhuru. Hands off Africa, all power to the people. And I want to appreciate you, comrade, Sister Lisa, for being on with me. So again, we have a goal of raising $500 today for today's webinar. You can do that by going to handsoffuhuru.org. And Lisa, I'm going to turn it over to you before we jump into our next section of the program. Uhuru.
Okay, great. I just want to remind people that September 11th is also the 52nd anniversary of the Attica Rebellion. Yep. And also, if you were in our coalition meeting last month, you were reminded that tomorrow is Leonard Peltier's 79th birthday, and there will be a celebration in Washington, D.C., and we say free all political prisoners and free Leonard Peltier. Uhuru.
Right on. Thank you, comrade. Yes, this is a historic period, and we are here to make sure that there is not one more political prisoner,
Exactly.
not one more anything. We are not going back. And so next time this year or in the future, we will be celebrating all of our victories, comrades. So again, we have a packed agenda and for tonight, but it was really urgent for us to bring on Comrade Reverend Keyanna Jones to give us a report on the latest government attacks on the activists from Stop Cop City in Atlanta. And, like we said, comrade, we're so happy to have you here with us, Reverend Keyanna Jones. This is not the first time that we've all been in spaces together. And you just want to give a brief introduction to all the work that you do, and then we're going to just jump into some questions. So Uhuru, and just want to say that Keyanna Jones is a political and social justice activist and community organizer who is a staunch advocate for quality, affordable childcare and equity in education. She currently works with community movement builders to educate, engage, and empower the Black community in Atlanta, Georgia, and so much more. And we just want to appreciate you, sis, for being on. And I know you may want to just say hello or Uhuru before I jump in, so I'll let you say something.
Uhuru, hello everybody. I'm so glad to be here with you tonight and so glad to stand in solidarity, not only with the Uhuru 3, but with the African People's Socialist Party and the Solidarity Committee for all African people, for our liberation and for an anti-colonial world. So glad to be here.
Right on, comrade. Yes, that's what we're fighting for, and we're happy to have you here as well. And just in terms of this, topic, right, of the attacks on the people, we just want to really appreciate your presentations and really just salute the community movement builders and its founder, Kamau Franklin. So if you can just tell us about, for those who don't know, what is Cop City and what it means for the African community and others in the Atlanta area and everywhere, and why we must stop Cop City.
Absolutely. Cop City is a $90 million plus militarized police training facility that is a direct response to the uprisings of 2020 after George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, and so many others were murdered at the hands of police. When people all over this country started to stand up and say no more to police terror, Cop cities started being introduced all over this country. The unique thing about this Cop City in the city of Atlanta is that it would be the largest in these contiguous United States, the largest. It would provide for militarized training of police officers. There would be military operations on urban terrain, which would have included a Black Hawk helicopter landing pad, a bomb testing facility, a mock city for officers to practice urban warfare, meaning war on Black bodies. It would also seek to destroy 381 acres of forest land in a majority Black neighborhood that has already been ravaged by environmental racism for decades. That same forest encompasses the South River watershed, which is the headwater of the largest body of water in the state of Georgia, which is the Ocmulgee and Altamaha River. What we see with Cop City is that it is nothing more than police repression and intimidation on a larger scale. This is militarized policing on steroids, simply meant to quell any protest movement and government pushback.
Now, let me ask you something, dear sister Keyanna, if I may. For the Stop Cop City protesters and donors, there have been very severe attacks by the government. Could you lay out the attacks, including the police murder of an indigenous activist and also the current indictments, and also include any indictments that have also previously happened to donors as well?
Absolutely. We find ourselves in a situation in this movement where, as a part of our call to stop Cop City, we have had the first murder of a climate justice activist on U.S. soil. We had a non-binary activist who was sitting and meditating, who was murdered, shot 57 times. 57 times for simply defending the forest by sitting in a tent, sitting with their hands up, not bothering anyone, but simply sitting in solidarity. And what we have seen going forward since the murder of our dear comrade Manuel Esteban Paez Terán, that we know as Tortuguita, what we have seen is those people who were with them sitting in tree houses, camping in tents in the forest. Those people have been charged with domestic terrorism for simply sitting to defend and protect the forest land that is so vital to this community. Since those charges, there have been others who have been charged with domestic terrorism for attending a music festival. People who were wearing dark clothing and maybe the clothing looked alike. They were charged with domestic terrorism for attending a music festival because it was so much easier for police to go into a music festival and try to kettle people while they were all in one place. Also, we now have 61 people, including all who have been charged with domestic terrorism heretofore, and others now are charged with RICO charges. They have slapped a racketeering charge on this movement because it is really their hope to bankrupt our solidarity fund. And what that means is that anyone who has donated to our bail fund that we call the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, anyone who is engaging in a practice that is decades old, a practice that we've seen since the civil rights movement to make sure that we can take care of our comrades as they stand for us in this fight for justice, something as simple and legal as donating to a bail fund is now being seen as a covert act in furtherance of a conspiracy. And people are being charged for things not only like donating to the bail fund, but we have people being charged with money laundering in connection to that for meal reimbursements. Someone bought glue and was charged with RICO charges and domestic terrorism for buying glue. And what we see with that is that the level of repression right now is unprecedented. What we see in the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia at large is that the powers that be have come together to say, we don't care if you're Black, white, Democrat, Republican, we'll work across the aisle with you so that we can shut these people down. We will make sure that we take every opportunity that we can to say, we don't want you protesting. There is no such thing as dissent. They have criminalized dissent against the government. And it's put us in a position where people not only are afraid to do things that they have been doing for years, standing in solidarity with people who are fighting for racial and social and environmental justice, for reproductive justice, economic justice. They're afraid to do something as simple as donate to a bail fund. But now people don't know that if they should get a meal reimbursed, whether they're going to be charged with RICO.
I mean,
Right.
when I hear this, it's just, I don't even want to use the word astounding because it happens all the time. And there's so much more to be said about this, but I realize we don't have a whole lot of time. So could you tell us, like, what are some of the next steps and what people can do to help to support?
Absolutely. Today we turned in the ballot referendum petition signatures to the Atlanta City Clerk's office. What we were met with was a message that Mayor Andre Dickens had told the clerk's office not to begin logging in those petitions and verifying signatures. So the city is once again pushing back on our efforts in this leg of the movement to stop Cop City. We need people to go to copcityvote.com. We still need people to donate time. We still need people to donate funds so that we can continue not only this legal fight, but so that this movement can be sustained in a way that we can fulfill our purpose, which is to stop Cop City, because we know that Cop City represents the repression, not only of people in Atlanta or the state of Georgia, but people worldwide, because this facility would be an international military training facility located right here in the United States. So we need people to raise their voices every way that they can, continue to post on social media, make sure that you continue to share with friends and family members. Go to communitymovementbuilders.org, copcityvote.com, and stand in solidarity with us. Uhuru, and thank you so much.
Uhuru. Wow. I mean, I know you just scratched the surface, one, and I just, wanted to say, Sister Keyanna, that I really want to appreciate that that overview of something that's happening. And as you said about, criminalizing dissent. And one thing that the chairman says is that law is the opinion of the ruling class. And if it's glue, or if it's, like you said, the comrade who, was brutally murdered. This is why we have to, and I want to ask you to, put those links in the chat, please, for the petition and other ways to support, because we want to invite Stop Cop City community movement builders to be there on November 4th, to be there on the Black is Back, so that everybody can get behind all of these fight backs. We'll be sending you an official invitation, to the Stop Cop City organizers and community movement builders to represent your struggle at the Black People's March. And my question was going to ask you how people can get in touch, but you did let us know, so please put that in the chat. Thank you so much, Keyanna, and we hope to have you back soon again, and with more updates about how we can continue to deepen the fight back. Uhuru, comrade, and thank you, Sister Lisa, as well. So, comrades, if you have any questions, you can add those into the chat as well. We want to appreciate everybody and remind everybody that we are building for the Black People's March on the White House. So go to blackpeoplesmarch.com and sign up if you want to endorse. You can also do that, blackpeoplesmarch.com/endorse. If you want to volunteer, you can do the same thing on that site as well. So now we are moving into the next section of our webinar. We wanted to talk again, because we are honored to have on with us here compañero Edelso Moret, who is the coordinator of the Network in Defense of Humanity in Cuba, and also, who has welcomed and befriended us on our trip when we were in Cuba with ABDEP, one of our organizations of the Uhuru movement, and just this past spring when the Hands Off Uhuru campaign was there on the ground. And so we also have on with us as well, dear compañero Jesús Rodriguez-Espinoza, who is the editor of Orinoco Tribune of Venezuela. So I want to appreciate both of you comrades for being on with us. And we also want to welcome on with us onto this panel, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who was the founder and chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, and also the target of the Uhuru 3 attacks. And so we want to appreciate everyone's participation tonight, compañeros Edelso, Jesus, who are part of the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. And we want to recognize, as we say, that this same government and colonial system that attacks African people everywhere, day in and day out inside the US and around the world, is also responsible for the economic, political, and military attacks on our friends in the Caribbean and in South America. And so we're honored to have and to welcome you both on as our, as true allies in this, hemisphere and in this anti-colonial free speech movement. So I also want to invite on Vice Chair of the Hands Off Coalition, Penny Hess, who was one of the Uhuru 3s, who is also going to be joining me as well on this panel. So,
Chairman Uhuru, and it is very much of an honor to be able to be here tonight. And I am one of the Uhuru 3 and a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And today, as has been said, is what many call the other September 11th, the 50th anniversary of the US-backed overthrow of the progressive government of Salvador Allende in Chile on September 11th, 1973. And again, we're very honored to have Edelso Moret and Jesús Rodriguez-Espinoza with us here tonight, along with Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So Uhuru and welcome. Uhuru. So Jesus,
thank you for inviting.
Pardon me?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Jesus, yes. Can you tell us what happened on 9/11/73?
Thank you for the invitation, compas, Uhuru. We today celebrates the 50th anniversary, if you can call it celebration, of course, but we commemorate 50 years after that bloody coup against Allende in 1973. And because of that, I believe that it's important to say that 50 years later, we need now more than ever to build the anti-colonial free speech movement. And what happened that day was that, I mean, was a bloody coup d'etat against an democratically elected president, which only fault was to call himself Marxist. So that's when the trouble began. So it's important also to say that what happened on September 11, 1973, was a coup and an assassination because they killed the president during the coup. That was the result of several actions taken, especially by the U.S. government, that were preceded by the August 10 coup on 1973 also. They try also to sabotage Allende's inauguration in 1970. They actually sabotaged the second attempt of Allende running in the presidential race in Chile in 1964, where many people say that he might actually won that election. But anyway, that's, I just want to give some context to what led to the coup d'etat on September 73. But more importantly, in order to have a better idea of what happened that day, I believe that it's important to talk a little bit about the international environment, international scenario. And we're talking about 1973. We were, the world was in the middle of the US-Vietnam fiasco. The world was in the middle of the Cold War, was very active. The non-alignment movement during those years, and also the new international economic order was part of the discussion, especially in the third world, and that gave a lot of hope to many countries, especially in the South. And we also have to take into consideration that a few years earlier, we had the how do you call it? The anti-colonial, movement in Africa and many other countries that get rid of the, colonial ties with Europe and especially with Europe. So, and then we have the Cuban Revolution that was also part of the, political environment, and that is inspired a lot of activists and people in Latin America, but also around the world. So that was the, the scenario that surrounded the coup d'etat against Allende. And of course, that led the US government, the Nixon administration, via Kissinger, to do whatever they have in hand to try to get rid of a bad example of having a Marxist president in the hemisphere. So that's basically, and they were so in the mud in Vietnam that they use all the intelligence apparatus of the US, especially the CIA, in order to mobilize, all the forces that ended up in the coup against Allende. But before that, I mean, that intelligence operation, that sabotage, subvertive operation led by the US had several, economic, several, elements. They sabotage the economy. They literally talk about strangulation of the Chilean economy. And there was inflation, there was a scarcity. They sabotage the labor union also. I mean, they control many unions in Chile that push towards, the coup against Allende. And the AFL-CIO from the USA also had a very important role in that union sabotage against the government of Allende. They promoted, I'm talking about the US, they promoted parliamentary destabilization. media war using the Mercurio newspaper, which is one of the most important newspaper in Chile. They promoted electricity blackouts. I mean, they did everything in their arsenal of sabotage to move the country towards the final decision, which was that a group of right-wing fascist military generals led by Pinochet to take the decision of take La Moneda, which is the presidential palace in Santiago, and kill Salvador Allende. So that's, I try to summarize it very briefly because we don't have too much time, but that's basically what happened. And one thing that I wanted to highlight is that all those tools that they used, I'm talking about the CIA against Chile, they repeated them exactly here in Venezuela. Thankfully, for several reasons that we don't have time now to discuss, we have been able to contain that in Venezuela, but that was not the case for Allende in 1973. So I believe that's my very fast approach toward your question.
Uhuru. Yes, thank you, Comrade Jesus. I mean, like you said, there's not enough time to go through it all, but you you mentioned, I mean, one of the chants that we're going to be saying on November 4th is 2468, tell the people who we hate, the FBI, the CIA, the whole damn state. We understand that it's an attack from the colonial state. And so I just want to really appreciate what you raised in this question of just the political attacks on the people, economic attacks, genocide, the attacks on the environment. And you mentioned Cuba, and I want to bring up Comrade Edelso and to, even talk about Cuba's relationship to Chile at this time and what was Cuba's response during this period as well. Uhuru.
Okay, Uhuru, and thank you for the invitation. As our comrade said before, Allende was a bad example for the US. I mean, for Latin America, they didn't want that. But then they had already Cuba, that just 90 miles away from the US were also a bad example. So they, but as he said, those formula that the CIA proposed for Chile were repeated with Bolivia, for example. And then they are doing that with Cuba. For 60 years, they are trying to strangle Cuba with sabotage of the economy, with the blockade, promoting uprising of the people and things like that. But at that time, for Fidel Castro, Salvador Allende was a social fighter, and Fidel said he was an interpreter of the desires for social justice. And you know that social justice is something that colonialists will always be against too, And taking into account the policies implemented by the Popular Unity government of Salvador Allende, such as the fight against child malnutrition, and also he tried to have a deepening of the agrarian reform. Cuba, with Fidel Castro, even before 1959, when the revolution triumphed, Fidel already had set forth an agrarian reform when he was in Sierra Maestra. So there were some similarities here. And again, the US government will not allow that at all, But then in November 1971, Cuban revolutionary leader Fidel began a historic visit to Chile. And he toured the length of the country in the midst of democratic socialist process that was happening under Allende's Popular Unity Coalition. The two leaders were friends. Castro even was presented Allende with an AK rifle with his name. And during the course of this visit that lasted several weeks, Fidel had the opportunity to explore the countryside. He visited the mines in Tierra del Fuego. He recognized that Chile was in the midst of a revolutionary process albeit one that had taken its own unique path from the Cuban president. This is something that we need to highlight. Salvador Allende was not proposing socialism in the same way Fidel started our socialist revolution with armed struggle. He was taking the path of a socialism that was won in elections. Okay, we need to keep that in mind. And also the establishment of diplomatic relations between Cuba and Chile was an important step for the young revolutionary Caribbean nation, I mean Cuba, that was seeking to build international solidarity. So we can say that at that time, the state visit from Fidel Castro to Chile in 1971 was a landmark, both for Chilean internal politics and for the foreign relations of Cuba. Okay? Remember that Fidel was visiting Chile as our, the person that presented before me said, amid a convulsion that was created by the CIA, the FBI, and the US government. They were trying to overthrow Allende no matter what, okay? So the hand of the CIA was always behind the cop, always. That there are proof of that in the documents they presented later on. Salvador Allende had emerged as winner of that those 1970 elections, and the US agents that were stationed in Chile began that campaign in collusion with the right wing. The complicity continued all the time that Allende was there in power. Washington, together with the oligarchy, would be in charge of sabotaging the economy of that South American country to create a tense situation and discontent among the population. And when you see the aim of the blockade against Cuba, those are precisely the same objective, to create discontent among the population. So there you see two similarities in what the CIA is doing or does whenever they don't like a progressive government. So those were the 3 difficult years for Salvador Allende. His program for popular unity in favor of all citizens, the striking measures of nationalization of copper. I mean, to nationalize mines is something that will always hurt those extractivist colonialists that are all over Latin America, Africa, and you name it. So that is something that they will never put up with. And then that cup rising overthrew what had been a shift in the 1,000 days of the popular unity government. And it turned Chile into a laboratory of neoliberalism at that time, an unjust, privatizing, inequality-generating model that was spreading throughout the region. And that is what we need to avoid at all costs. If we have something to learn from that, is that the imperialism will never stop trying to do things like that. They want to spread throughout the Latin American region, in the whole world, we could say, that model of inequality. And we need, again, to avoid all that at any cost. That's what I have to say so far. Thank you.
Uhuru. Thank you, Brother Edelso. You even took us, beyond where, where we wanted to ask you some further questions. So we want to appreciate you just, with the history of, of Cuba's relationship to the anti-colonial struggle, to the struggle for socialism, for the people, which we understand that, like you said, they were a problem, right, for the U.S., or you said, not a good thing, right? And so
we're not a good example. We were not a good example.
That's the word you use. Yes, not a good example, right? But we understand that this is the example, and this is why it's so important to build this anti-colonial free speech movement. And I want to, turn it back over to Comrade Jesus, because, as we deepen this discussion, under the U.S. backed Pinochet dictatorship, thousands of, quote unquote, disappeared, people under Pinochet. Can you tell us about the disappeared and how many people were brutally slaughtered under that backed government of Pinochet?
Yes, I try to make a collection of figures that I believe are important for our followers, the people that is watching this stream to know. But before that, I want to invite everyone sorry, to watch a very important documentary about Chile. The name of that documentary is The Battle of Chile. It's a documentary in 3 parts that you can find easily with subtitles on YouTube, and that gives you a very deep insight about, what happened, the events that led to the coup d'etat and the U.S. involvement in that coup d'etat, and what happened with the repression and everything. So if you can watch it, I invite you to do it. The Battle of Chile is the name. And yes, going back to the question, I want to say that a lot of people associate the word disappeared, desaparecidos, from Chile and Argentina, the dictatorships in the South con Brazil. But many people, at least here in Venezuela, they say that the term desaparecido was invented here in the 60s, in the late 60s, because all our security apparatus was penetrated by the CIA, or our military forces were trained like most military forces in the continent were trained in the School of the Americas, which was like a training camp for dictators that was founded, that existed for several decades in the US. And that also says a lot about the hypocrisy of the US, of people in Washington, when they talk about democracy and human rights and those things. So just to give you some figures that I believe that are important to mention, 200,000 people went to exile, at least during the years of the coup government of Augusto Pinochet. 130,000 people were arrested in the first 3 years of the coup. 40,000 people were identified as political prisoners. That's a lot of people. 40,000 we are talking about in a country of 10 million people that was the population of Chile then. 30,000 people were victims of human rights violations. Between 3,000 and 5,000 people, the most conservative figures say, were assassinated or desaparecidos during the coup after the coup against Allende, during the dictatorship government of Pinochet, actually. And the political repression was not localized only within Chilean borders. Pinochet took the audacity, if you can call it like that, to kill in Washington, D.C., the foreign minister of Allende, Orlando Letelier.
Yeah. Yes.
And no one did anything about that, not even in the US. So that's to give you an idea of how repressive and bloody that government was. And the worst part of the whole scene is that the guy left the government untouched in 1990, I believe that was. They had a referendum in 1989 to find an easy democratic way to take him out of, the political, scenario. And but they in Chile did not change the constitution that was written by the dictatorship of Pinochet, and that constitution is still there. So, that's to give you some figures and some information that I really is important.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much, Comrade.
Remember the Battle of Chile.
Yes, I was going to say somebody
because one scene. Sorry for interrupting you. One scene is talking about Pinochet, and another scene is listening to Pinochet speaking. That man had a ideological and intellectual clarity that was amazing for that time. So you can watch part of his speeches in that documentary. Sorry for interrupting you, Wesley.
No. There, I really appreciate that intervention, Jesus, and I appreciate you letting us know about this film. It has been linked in the chat as well. So I want to encourage people to save the chat if you have not already, so that you can, tune into that. And we, there will be many more events that we have to, bring all of this to the surface, because, as we've said, that this is the anti-colonial free speech movement. So there is nothing that we won't talk about, that we won't expose, that we won't continue to bring the people, into full clarity about what is happening and about who our enemy is. And it's not each other. We understand that it is the state. And so I want to appreciate you for, for helping us to, deepen even the question of political prisoners. We can look at everything, under this attack of the attack of oppressor nations on the oppressed nations. And so I just really want to appreciate you, Comrade Jesus, and you as well, Comrade Brother Edelso. So I want to turn it back to Comrade Penny. I know you have a few questions as well.
Yes.
Can I say just something quickly on this? Sorry.
Yes.
Can I add something quickly on this?
Yes, please. Quickly.
Please,
yes.
just quickly. As Jesus said, persecution and elimination of political opponents spread throughout the whole continent. And there is proof that the support of the United States was there. They created the so-called Operación Cóndor, and as Jesus said, that School of the Americas, where they taught the military dictatorships how to torture and persecute their political opponents. But when you see that the same method of torture was still applied here in Guantanamo in Cuba, with the prisoners that they took to Guantanamo illegally without any trial or anything, that's why I said again, we need to stop the US imperialism from doing this. They do it whenever they want to do it. And we need to put up our effort, struggle to stop all that. Fortunately, Cuba could offer shelter to many of those Chileans that had to leave Chile, and we have thousands of Chilean citizens that the Cuban government offered shelter. There was even a housing project for them in a region in Alamar, in the eastern part of Cuba. So we tried to help them, but as Jesus said, it was a massive persecution and killing of political opponents. Again, we need to denounce all that, and we need to stop them from doing that whenever they want.
Yeah.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, this is Penny, and I just really, this has been a profound discussion so far, very, very powerful to hear from representatives of Venezuela and Cuba who have been on the front lines in the Caribbean and South America against the vicious US colonial violence that is inflicted upon the people every day for hundreds of years. And I want to open this up now to Chairman Omali Yeshitela, we have the honor of being here with us to bring in the whole question of the struggle for African liberation and the relationship to the struggles overall, the anti-colonial free speech movement. So Chairman Omali Yeshitela, welcome.
Uhuru, thank you, Comrade Penny. I want to express my appreciation to Comrade Chairwoman Muezi for hosting this extremely important webinar that we're having now. To compañeros Jesus y Edelso, also really want to express appreciation for your participation. It's a remarkable webinar that we're having now. To all of the people who've joined in to participate in this discussion. And it's an interesting discussion for a number of reasons, because we're looking at a crisis of extraordinary proportion that's occurring in the whole world. And the world order that has been in existence for a long time, but owes its immediate origin to the 1940s, is something that's unraveling everywhere. And the crisis is such that we live in an era of uneasy equilibrium. What used to be the premier dominant order of things now is under extreme stress. The fact is that the United States, like to, in its opposition to other peoples and countries around the world, characterize its goal, that is to say, the goal of the United States is pursuit of what they define as a rules-based world order, a world order based on rules. And of course, they mean that. They're not actually lying when they say that. But what they mean is that rules that they make, rules made by the colonizer, rules made by the United States, those are the rules that prevail. They like to characterize this rules-based order is something that is exemplified by things like free and fair elections. But what we've seen, of course, we're talking now, 50th anniversary of an assault on an elected president by the United States government. Of course, Jesús is there in Venezuela, and we remember the U.S. government's involvement in attempting the overthrow of Hugo Chavez, who, despite some doubt by some people, I'm still convinced they played a role in killing. So that's the rules-based order they're talking about. The fact is they change the rules anytime it serves their interest. From the perspective of the African People's Socialist Party, from my perspective, I think that one of the things that's really important for us to grapple with is the reality that the existing social system that we're in contention with, that reverberates throughout the world, the system that killed Patrice Lumumba in Congo in 1960, 61, that overthrew Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, by the way, while he was involved in trying to consolidate, participated in the anti-colonial kind of unity and peace around Vietnam, where the United States was engaged in war. So Nkrumah is overthrown in 1966, after the US had frustrated efforts that he had initiated to try to consolidate a united union of African states that destroyed the borders in Africa that were created by the colonizers in 1884 and 85. And so they overthrew Nkrumah. So it's a period now that we're looking at of incredible uncertainty. It's an era of an uneasy equilibrium where history is being compressed. And what it previously took years and years to develop and occur, things are now happening in a matter of months and weeks and days. It's just a rapid kind of development. And you have a period such as this with such pronounced disequilibrium, it fills some with despair and fear, and many with uncertainty. And the fact is that the global international order is disintegrating. It's disintegrating. Nothing is as it was before. And a world order is collapsing. And we see new emerging and sometimes re-emerging political forces rooted in the history of our colonial reality, now combining, recombining, if you will, to uproot the previous world order, having its immediate origin in the colonial Atlanticist bloc that came about in the 1940s when the imperial powers, colonial powers got together and created the United Nations and the World Bank, and what we're looking at now in terms of the existing economic forces. It created the International Monetary Fund. It created all of these entities that's had the world locked, not Cuba, not just someplace in Africa, but most of the world locked into this order. And that's something that's we've seen in a state of disintegration, disrepair right now. And that's a really important thing. So yeah, there is a disorder, as the Chinese revolutionaries used to say, there's great disorder under the heavens. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's terrible, but it's good. Because when you see a world system, a global system based on colonial slavery and what have you, when it's functioning perfectly, when there is no crisis, when there is no disorder, that means that the stability of oppression and slavery is something that makes the oppressor happy. And of course, the enslaved and the oppressed are living under terrible kinds of situations. So the fact that we are living in this period of disequilibrium, it doesn't have to be something that frightens us, that pushes us into despair. What we see is a world order that has bound us, chained us, if you will, to despair and poverty and humiliation as a natural order of things. That thing is coming apart. And if you understand, if you understand that what we're looking at is a colonial mode of production, that the thing that created a Cuba, Venezuela, that created an America as it's now characterized, and the Americas, is a process of enslavement and colonialism, that Portugal assaulted Africa something like 600 years ago and began this process that created a world economy for the first time in history and locked the entire world into this parasitic relationship, parasitic kind of contradiction that's trapped most of us. And when I say a parasitic relationship, I'm talking about a mode of production. I'm not just talking about something that happens to African people or something that happens to Mexicans or Cubans or Venezuelans or people in Algeria and other places around the world. It happens to the world. And that we've been locked into this mode of production. And for the first time in history, we have a whole world economy emerged. And now the history has been changed. And the people are engaged into a common process, whether we've been conscious of it or not. We're looking at a dialectic, a unity of opposite between oppressed and oppressor, between colonized and colonizers. And this is a prevailing thing that exists in the world. And so anytime you have a world economy based on a foundation, it's created on a fault line of colonialism. The world economy, the Rockefellers, the other forces of wealth and power, their whole well-being rests upon a fault line of colonialism. And as the colonized people begin to move to change that relationship, it shakes up the entire foundation of the world economy, and it demands from the oppressor to do the kinds of things that we saw happen in Chile, the kinds of things that we saw happen with Cuba, the kinds of things that we've seen happen in Ecuador and various other places around, to Lumumba and Nkrumah. This is natural in the kinds of things that happened in St. Louis, Missouri, and St. Petersburg, Florida on July 29th of 2022. It's a normal relationship. It's a colonial relationship. It's a mode of production. From our perspective, that's trapped us all. And so when we see what's happening in Chile, we can anticipate it. We can count the bodies. We can say the number of people who were pushed into stadiums and murdered by this social system. But the same things, we had National Guard troops in the United States who were armed and prepared to do harm to people who were trying to struggle right here in the United States. Africans on a regular basis, this is a reality that we are confronted with because, again, we're looking at a world economy that rests upon the foundation of colonialism. So I just think that that we don't have to be afraid, but what we do have to do, is to participate actively, collectively. Building this anti-colonial free speech coalition is extremely important. We don't have to be inert objects that's there waiting for the imperialists or the colonizers to do their will against us. We can do as they tried to do in Cuba in 1962 with the Tri-Continental Conference, that people came together to say we will organize against colonialism. We won't wait for some kind of policy that comes from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or any other party in the United States Here is our platform. We know that Biden is never going to put on the platform, the Democratic Party will never put on the platform the freedom of the peoples of the world, will never put on their platform when they're running for office. Got a presidential election happening in 2024 here. But that will never enter the platform that comes from them. But we can put it on our platform. And that means that we don't rely on them simply to do what has to be done. That's why November 4th is going to be so important when we march in Washington, D.C., hundreds and thousands strong. And then we put on that, drop the charges now, drop the charges. We put on the hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. We talk about what's happening to Cop City, what's happening to the Tampa Five, what's happening to all of these people who are living under oppression. Do you think Biden and the Democratic Party is going to say free all of the Black political prisoners and political prisoners in this country? No, 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 but we can. And what we do in the process of doing that, we negate the influence and authority of those forces that continues to dominate the world, and we begin to create our own anti-colonial history. That's what we think this November 4th is all about, and why this is so important. So it's terrible what is happening in the world. It's terrible, but it's good. It's terrible because there is disorder everywhere. But it's good because the oppressed now have an opportunity to colonize, now have an opportunity to come together and to be able to put a united force against this global colonial mode of production. We can do this in unity. We have a platform. The Black is Black Coalition has a national Black political agenda for self-determination. It took a year traveling throughout the United States, organizing African people, organizing conventions throughout something like 11 states. Organizing a national convention that happened in Washington, D.C. People came together, laid out, this is our platform, this is our program, National Black Political Agenda. And then on July 8th, this conference came together under the hands of Uhuru to pull together this magnificent anti-colonial free speech mobilization movement organization that will go into Washington, D.C. with a campaign for the people, of the people, by the people. That's what we will be doing, and that's what makes it so important. So it's terrible, but it's good. We see the whole situation where, can you imagine this? I mean, the United States, has for so long, it has talked about banana republics and coups, and even recently they were gloating because of what they saw with the Wagner group apparently marching on Moscow. They said, ha, ha, ha. But they did that while ignoring the fact that just in January 6th, that a coup attempt was happening in the United States, where settlers themselves who were dissatisfied with the status quo actually climbed into the Capitol to disrupt an election, chased the vice president of the United States through the halls, threatening to hang him, threatening to lynch him. This is in the United States. You have a situation today where political trials are bound, where the president, the former president of the United States, can you imagine this? You never could have imagined this a year ago, 2 years ago. The former president of the United States has been indicted, something like 6-year-old indictments, I think, or more. He's facing trial. You got the existing president of the United States who are facing impeachment probabilities from the US Congress. That's the kind of thing that's happening now. Trials, political trials everywhere, on every persuasion, so that any kind of contradiction reveals the fragility of a social system that's based on colonialism and slavery. And a system based on colonialism and slavery is destroyed with the emancipation of the colonized and enslaved people, not only in the United States, but around the world. And so we're talking about a system where freedom is illegal. Never been a time where in colonialism you could have legal freedom. Never could be possible for a system based on slavery where freedom could be legal. It had to be illegal. And so the system cannot stand democracy, cannot tolerate democracy. It talks about a colonial democracy. It says that Africans who are in Niger and Mali and all these other places who are getting rid of French colonizers are making an assault on democracy. They're talking about a coup against the government in Mali, but it's a coup against France. And the fact is that that colonialism is the most anti-democratic act short of slavery that one can commit. So to create a system that relies on colonial domination for its very survival. That means that people who are struggling against colonialism are killing the colonizer and killing the colonized at the same time. So that's the thing that we are looking at. That's the significance of this incredible process that we've initiated right now. And we will see people coming into Washington, D.C., buses, trains, airplanes, caravans, carloads of people coming to Washington, D.C., saying, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, drop the charges against Uhuru free. This is the world, new world that we're in the process of creating right now. That's how we see November 4th. We're not just some inert objects that's on the defensive. This November 4th is a counteroffensive against oppression and repression. Uhuru. Uhuru. Yeah.
Uhuru. Wow. Uhuru, Chairman Uhuru, to this panel, and just really want to, I know we are very much behind on time, but I just want to, before opening up to any final remarks from this panel, I just wanted to really appreciate what you were saying, Chairman, about like the fault line and just the fracturing of this system. I mean, it's such a great metaphor and an analysis, and just the fact that we, the people, are responsible for that, and there should be this excitement, like you say, like a great time of, as it was stated in the chat by Comrade Brendan, a great time of peril and a promise. And this is a result of the structure, of the struggles of the people. The people are not backing down, and everybody, we can be the ones to put imperialism, colonialism on its deathbed. And in the process of this, if we want to see a socialism, it cannot exist under colonialism. So like all of this has to go. And here we are in the process of building this anti-colonial free speech movement. And what makes the attacks on the party so profound is that we have a fracturing of the colonizer nation itself coming under the leadership of the African working class. And that in itself was a threat, as well as we see with the Uhuru 3 comrades, Penny and Jesse as well. So just really want to salute just this entire panel. And I know we're going to move quickly through the next section just to kind of get back on time, but we did want to open it up to our panelists, and appreciate you, Chairman, for that overview as well. Uhuru. And I know, yes, okay, I see Comrade Edelso and Brother Jesus as well. So we have about our timekeepers tell me about 5 minutes. So maybe if y'all can share 5 minutes, of any closing remarks, please, Uhuru. And we'll start with, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanna say Uhuru to the words of what the chairman just said about the hypocrisy of this rule-based order, about the lie of freedom. And everything at the end of the day, at least in my humble opinion, is connected to a system that is designed to do that. I mean, if we don't address the issue of capitalism as the root of all evil, we will never, target the root of the issue, and that's why, in my opinion, it is extremely important to avoid. I mean, of course, you don't have to be like Marxist Leninist to do that, but you have to recognize that the root of the problem is based in the capitalist economic system, and that's the thing that we need at some point to address, because that's what caused colonialism. That's the root of racism. That's the root of all the atrocities that we are talking about. So I just want to mention that, because I believe it's important to don't forget that the cause of the problem is the economic system that we live on.
I just want to add, can I say something?
Yes, please, you can take a
I just want to add that the Cuban Revolution, its main objective was to change that order of things that Comrade Rechitela was saying, that wrong order of things. Also, that the Cuban Revolution recognized the need to overcome exclusions based on racism and patriarchy. The Cuban socialism brought more women into dignify the labor force and defined a clear anti-imperialist line and politics of solidarity with the developing world. And in that way, the experience of our socialism demonstrated a fundamental component of democracy. Freedom and equality are reciprocal.
Uhuru. Well, Uhuru comrades.
Uhuru Compass.
Uhuru Compass, I just want to say that I have complete unity about the need for destroy capitalism. And capitalism has to be destroyed. The whole social system based on the expropriation of value from the labor and also resources of human beings by people who don't create value, who don't work at all themselves, by systems that extract that. Have absolute unity with it. There's no disagreement. The place where I start, however, is the fact that capitalism has its foundation in colonialism. At least that's what Karl Marx said. What I read, what he said is that that this thing that he called, he characterized as how did he characterize this? No, not just primitive accumulation. That's the thing. He defined primitive accumulation as being what? He wasn't just talking about primitive accumulation. He said the starting point of this entire thing is turning out warring for the commercial hunting of black skins. It was then turning the indigenous people into Americas, into the mines and things like that, extracting value. There was the assault that was made on what he characterized as East India. This is the basis. This is the start up of capital. This is the primitive accumulation that did not come about as a consequence of capitalist production, but was the starting point for capitalist production. This is what Marx said. I agree with him from my own experiences, my own observations around the world. I think that is true. I don't think anybody can deny that. If you see a situation where workers in Nigeria who are involved in the oil industry drive up the price of oil everywhere. And when they go on strike, the oil prices go. That's why they're getting uranium from where? Getting uranium from Nigeria and other places like that. That's the stuff that they're using to threaten the world with destruction. The concern that we have now around this Ukraine and other issues that being initiated by the imperial powers, they're getting those resources from those places, the whole foundation of the capitalist system. That's all I'm saying. So I hate capitalism. How can I not hate capitalism? I mean, African people who work more, whose labor value has been stolen more than African people, not just in the United States, but all around the world. So I unite with you on that. But I will also say that Cuba came into existence, what we now call Cuba, as a part of a colonial process that was based on African slave labor. And that's true of most of the Americas. This is not an attack on the idea of capitalism, but I'm just saying that I think foundational, how does capitalism happen? They enslaved people, they oppressed, they colonized, have to have agency too. We are not just inert objects that's to be defined. We also participate in defining. We also participate in defining. So I agree with 100%. So we are united around the need to destroy capitalism, right? Capitalism must go, right? Death to capitalism, right? Death to capitalism. I'm just saying the way you get there is driving a stake in the heart of the colonial mode of production. And that's yeah, I agree 100%. Uhuru.
Chairman, yes. And this is a really exciting time for us to continue to have, as we say, take up the democratic space to have discussions around what liberation looks like for our people and the ideological clarity that we need as we continue in this struggle. And so I just really want to salute this, as Chairwoman Penny said, to have representatives of Venezuela, of Cuba, of the African nation here, of the colonial, of the colonized forces of the world who are assuming leadership over our future. So there is nothing more profound than to be in the struggle with you, comrades. And I just really want to appreciate you all for being on this call. And don't go. And we know we're going to see you all on November 4th, or there are other events and activities happening around November 4th. Because again, this is to build and to make a point in the books of history that on this day, the people all around the world said, we are not going back, not one step backward, not going back. So
not going back. No.
Comrades, just really profound panel.
Yes.
Just really salute. So just want to give a round of applause all by myself over here. Okay, and in a
Okay, I am in Cuba. I am in Cuba, but my fist will be there in that march.
Hey, right on.
But Cuba already is a bone in the throat of the imperialists.
It is. It's a big old bone.
Yes, we are.
Uhuru, Brother Edelso, and thank you, compa Jesus. And just again, the roles that these comrades play in the news and the media is another really important, aspect of this fight back and in the, process of bringing to light everything that is, against the people. So just really want to salute you, comrades. So we're going to move on to the next section in today's program, because again, we want to let everybody know how to build for November 4th. Some people were asking about saving the chat. I'm saving the chat, and I know our Zoom tech is also saving the chat. We will make sure this chat gets to everyone because it is on fire. There are so many amazing comments. If you're on YouTube, you're missing out what's happening on Zoom. So just want to say, log in and come on in so we can, hook you up with what's happening in this chat. So please, everybody, continue to put that in there, and we'll make sure that everyone gets that information. So, all right, Uhuru Nduku was able to save the chat. Right on, comrade, and we'll make sure everyone gets that as well. So again, like we said, this is not only a call for November 4th, but also to help continue to fund the legal fund for Hands Off Uhuru. So please go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate to make a contribution, become a monthly sustainer. That helps us to keep this campaign going month after month as well. And again, I'm going to bring up comrade Sister Lisa McKimba Davis, who's going to be on this part of the program with me. We're going to let everybody know about how you can help to build for November 4th. And I'm going to take a moment to read the call. And we do have this up on the blackpeoplesmarch.com. If you go to the blackpeoplesmarch.com, you can follow along and read the call along with me. This is the call to forward to the Black is Back Coalition on the 15th annual Black is Back Coalition Black People's March on the White House on November 4th. We are saying to drop the charges on the Uhuru 3. We're saying not one step backward. And again, to build the anti-colonial free speech movement. So I'm going to take a moment to read the call, and then we're going to tell everybody how you can make it real and be there on November 4th. So there is a powerful new movement afoot, and it is a movement that has been brought to life by a revitalized African liberation struggle and the recreation of a generalized and essential multinational unified anti-colonial leadership. It is a movement that will correct the course of history that has enslaved the world under an oppressive colonial mode of production that spawned capitalism, a system generally known as imperialism. It is a movement that is penetrating every nook and cranny, every crevice in the political and ideological terrain of the US and the world, and it is calling you. This is a movement this movement will roar to prominence on November 4th, 2023, with the 15th annual Black People's March on the White House, sponsored by the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. This year's Black People's March on the White House is being co-sponsored by the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Fight Back Committee, along with the massive anti-colonial free speech coalition that was organized during the July 8th conference. The coalition is made up of at least 40 organizations and many individuals spanning the ideological and political spectrum. 18 of those organizations are constituents of organizations of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations, along with its organizationally unattached individual members. The theme for the 15th annual Black People's March on the White House is Not one step backwards. Black liberation movement under FBI attack again. Drop the charges now. This unifying anti-colonial theme is a demand that stems from the watershed U.S. colonial government July 29, 2022 military attacks on the U.S. front of the African liberation movement in St. Petersburg, Florida, and St. Louis, Missouri. It is a violent attack initiated by FBI agents under the authority of the U.S. Justice Department. And it was an attack on 7 properties and homes of the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru movement that it leads. It was an attack that shut down and terrorized entirely shut down and terrorized entire roped off African neighborhoods, in some cases demanding identification from Black people attempting to leave and enter their homes during these pre-dawn raids. Armored vehicles and flashbang grenades, along with assault weapons and lasers targeting the chest of APSP Chairman Omali Yeshitela, accompanied battering rams that destroyed doors, broke windows during the FBI looting rampage that stole financial records, archives materials, videos, cell phones, laptops, and other communication devices to the tune of $40,000 in damage. Why? Because the crisis of colonial mode of production is so pronounced, especially within the US, that it cannot tolerate the much vaunted free speech that is enshrined in the First Amendment of the US Constitution. Indeed, First Amendment expression of free speech by colonized Africans is apparently feared even more than Second Amendment rights claimed by US white settlers to bear arms. The assault on free speech includes the US government's claim that the work by the African People's Socialist Party gathering signatures on petitions to take to the UN, to the United Nations, for the US's violation of the UN Convention on the Prevention and Punishment on the Crimes of Genocide was initiated as part of a conspiracy by the Russian government to promote quote unquote discord in the US. They pretend ignorance that our people have agency and do not need anyone, including Russia, to explain our plight to us. For they ignore the fact that African people attempted to take the US to the UN for violations of the Genocide Convention in 1952, 4 years after it was adopted by the UN, and 40 years before it was even ratified by the US. They pretend to be ignorant of the dictum from the assassinated Malcolm X and Africans in the US should stop taking our case to the US courts and bring the criminal US courts before the World Court. Sorry, I read that part wrong. They pretend to be ignorant of the dictum of the assassinated Malcolm X that Africans in the US should stop taking our case to US courts and bring the criminal US before the World Court. They pretend ignorance of the fact that African People's Socialist Party created the first World Tribunal on reparations for Africans in the US in November of 1982 in Brooklyn, New York, where an international panel of jurors found the US guilty of violating international law, including the UN Genocide Convention. The US Colonial Justice Department ridiculously claims that the Uhuru movement election campaigns for mayor and city council in St. Petersburg, Florida, putting reparations on the ballot for the first time in history in 2017 and 2019 were also paid by the Russians, when the 14-point platform of the APSP has carried explicit references to opposition to genocide and demanded reparations since the 1970s. Of course, the US government has manufactured these bogus attacks on the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement knows these are all lies. However, they rely on the repressive playbook that they successfully utilized in the 1960s with the notorious COINTELPRO campaign. They manufactured anti-communist hysteria against Russia in the US and the fear of a Black revolution that even infested much of the white left to isolate the US front of the African liberation movement. Terrorizing the white settler population, splitting the progressives and the revolutionaries, neutralizing the liberals, and isolating the African liberation movement was successful in the 1960s, but it won't work today, in part, comrades, because of you. The Black is Back Coalition's 15th annual Black People's March on the White House is being co-sponsored by the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Fightback Coalition and the massive anti-colonial free speech coalition that recognizes that the attack on the APSP and the Uhuru movement functions as the proverbial canary in the coal mine. We refuse to allow the Black liberation movement to be isolated and through inactivity function objectively as colonial accomplices. We see the intensification of repression in every sector, indigenous people in concentration camps, euphemistically referred to as Indian reservations and barrios, and the 50-year lockdown of political prisoner Leonard Peltier, the continuation of imprisonment of children in cages at the US southern colonial border, and more. We see the escalation of the US-sponsored terror waged against Palestinians and other Arabs fighting the colonial project in the Middle East. A kidnapped Venezuelan diplomat, Alex Saab, is being illegally held in the US prisons. Supporters of Cuba's demanding the removal of that noble country from a bogus list of terrorism sponsors. Spurious indictments of opponents of the Cop City project in Atlanta, Georgia. All are examples of the growing repression in the wake of the July 29, 2022 attack on the US-based African liberation movement, represented by the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement. However, for the first time on November 4th, anti-imperialists of every persuasion and nationality are marching lockstep in unity with and under the leadership of the African and other colonized peoples, including the indigenous who live under settler colonial domination. You must also be there. On our November 4th, an anti-colonial free speech mobilization is a clear declaration by all of us that we will not return to the past and defeat humiliation, not one step backwards. We are coming by the hundreds from throughout the US using every possible mode of transportation. Some of us will take commercial flights to DC, while others will drive and arrive in caravans. Chartered buses will roll through the capital from Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, Minneapolis, and other areas in the US Midwest. Representatives of indigenous people, including organizers of the movement to free Leonard Peltier, will be there as a glaring reminder of the protracted nature of our struggle against colonial oppression. Groups are also organizing for the November anti-colonial free speech mobilization in southern US cities such as Louisiana, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and among other locations. We also see and we welcome comrades from Cambridge, New Haven, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Wilmington, Newark, Baltimore, and elsewhere. Africans are organizing to protest on that day at the US embassies in Pretoria and in London. To date, Africans and supporters are planning unity demonstrations in Germany, Niger, Venezuela, and possibly Australia. The US attack on the US front of the African liberation movement has sparked an exponential resurgence of the anti-colonial movement. Ideological and political shackles that prevented a united collaboration against our colonial oppressors are being shattered everywhere. The colonial issue is exploding globally. Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Brazil, Venezuela are all part of this explosion. The pushback against the revived Marcos regime must also be included. Your participation in the November 4th Black is Back mobilization will be a part of this anti-colonial explosion. The growing unity of the Anti-Colonial Free Speech Coalition inspired the July 29, 2022 attacks on the African People's Socialist Party. The Black liberation movement are exemplified by these demands around which we are marching. So we have the list of demands here. I'm not going to read all of them just for the sake of time, but I am going to kind of just summarize. And again, you can see these demands on handsoffuhuru.org/coalition. You can click read our demands and it'll take you right to that section. But we are, the main demand of this is to drop the charges against the Uhuru 3 and all others who have been targeted politically, and who have been politically imprisoned by the US colonial state. We are also taking up the demand for the total liberation and reunification of Africa and African people. We are denouncing all politically motivated raids, indictments, and slander against the African People's Socialist Party. As we mentioned, Stop Cop City, the Tampa 5, the right to freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, the right to associate with our allies and make friends with who we want. Also, the release of all political prisoners, as we had mentioned, Leonard Peltier, Jalil Al-Hamin, Mumia Abu-Jamar, Ed Poindexter, many others, and again, to drop the charges on Assata Shakur. Also, the demands that all candidates and political parties that are contesting in the 2024 elections, the presidential elections or any other elections, demand to drop the charges on the Uhuru 3 and other targeted organizations, whistleblowers, and individuals. We're also demanding that the governments end their attacks on the Mexican, Navajo, and indigenous people, occupied Palestine, Filipino, African people, Alex Saab, the African people of Haiti, the people of Venezuela, and to end the blockade on Cuba and to lift Cuba off that U.S. state sponsors of terrorism list. And our eighth demand is to demand the immediate cessation of U.S. funding for the war in Ukraine, that and these billions of dollars be paid towards the long overdue reparations that are demanded by Black people. And these were the demands that were united upon at the July 8th founding meeting of the coalition. And I'll just finish this call by saying, with the July 29, 2022 attacks on our freedom, on our freedom movement, the colonizer has picked up a big rock and dropped it on its own foot. Comrades, we are uniting and we are winning. We say drop the charges against the Uhuru 3, build the anti-colonial free speech movement, venceremos, Uhuru. So
Uhuru. Drop the charges. Get on the bus.
Get on the bus.
Yes, on the bus. Drop the charges.
Right on. So I saw people following along on that. So you have access to that. And that's also on blackpeoplesmarch.com. Thank you, Comrade Makimba. We're going to move through in this section now. So we want people to post blackpeoplesmarch.com on your websites, share that with family, with friends, put that on your social media, right? Uhuru. And Comrade Lisa, I know we have some comrades that are going to come on and tell us like how to volunteer. I wanted to take a moment and also maybe throughout this, just kind of shout out some of the other contingents that have confirmed with coming along with us.
Definitely.
Yeah, right on. So as we wait, so we have a call for everybody to sign up to register for the march, but also we need volunteers. This is not going to just happen magically. As we said, the Black is Back has been carrying this for 14 years. The Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition has united with building this march, and we need all hands on deck. We want to appreciate those who have signed up to volunteer, and there's many committees, so we're going to invite some of those comrades on to explain what those committees are about. But I want to just, maybe Lisa, I could read half of this list and you could read the other half of some of the list people that we have who are going. So I want to appreciate the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee, who has united with Coming, Comrade Director under the leadership of Director David Hill, the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. We're going to be there with our over 40 organizations that are part of this fight back. We want to appreciate Margaret Flowers with Popular Resistance, who is working on trying to build a contingent of young people to come to this march, as well as the Black is Back Coalition, which includes some other member organizations like Louisiana United, Jericho Movement. We have Sister Lisa Davis, also the Peoples for Organization and Progress, and Joko Collective. Those are just to name a few. And the whole Black is Back is going to be there, obviously. And I also want to appreciate Sister Afia Nwaganza, who is going to be here with the Malcolm X Center as well, who has united with Coming. Uhuru.
And we also have Annual, the African National Women's Organization, NPDOM, USM, AFDAP, the African People's Socialist Party, Barry Bender, Green Party member of New Jersey, UNAP, Union del Barrio, Mwezi, and Dr. Matsunella, Odom, LA Hands Off Cuba Committee, and so many more. And I apologize in advance right now for some people who I know I did not name, but we appreciate all of you. And we know that there will be many more.
And if your name wasn't mentioned, put it in the chat.
Yeah, chat. Let us know.
Make it real, call us out, say you forgot to mention me, and we'll make sure that the world knows, and we'll see you there. So thank you, Comrade Lisa. And again, go to blackpeoplesmarch.com/volunteer. That's been put in the chat, as well as the link to get on the bus. I want to bring up Comrade Akinge, who is a member of the Black is Back Coalition, also a member of the African People's Socialist Party, but plays a really real role on the coordination of this march every year. And Comrade Akinge has joined us to talk about one of the many committees that people can join. In addition to this committee, which Akinge will talk about, leads the logistics. We're also calling on people to join the social media, website, and outreach committees as well. So I'll turn it over to Akinge, who will tell us about the logistics committee and how people can get involved. Uhuru. Oh, I just saw her for a moment there. Then she disappeared. Okay, Akinge, are you there?
I think you're muted.
I don't have the ability to start the video.
Okay. Let me press ask to start video and ask to unmute.
Go back.
Uhuru. And again, blackpeoplesmarch.com/volunteer. You will see this, what Comrade Akinge is going to talk about, this list. You can select any of those committees. We also have healthcare volunteers as well. So we want to encourage people to use your skills in that way too. Uhuru Akinge, I see you now.
All right, Uhuru.
Uhuru.
And I just really want to celebrate, this was a fantastic webinar thus far. And again, my name is Akinge Maele, and I'm leading the logistics committee. And just so you understand what the logistics committee does, we're responsible for the setup and breakdown at both our pre-rally, at our rally at Malcolm X Park, as well as our rally at Lafayette Park, as well as at the conference. We are responsible for coordinating volunteers, which can include vendors as well as caterers. We're responsible for assisting with registration, making sure people have registration information, know where they're going, where they need to report to, if they're speakers, etc., where everyone needs to go. Assisting with bus coordination, providing instruction for the buses and bus loads of cars and caravans, everything that will be coming, as well as assisting with coordinating equipment such as megaphones, stage equipment, timekeepers. There's room for everyone to find something to do to participate in this march. So volunteer, make sure you go to blackpeoplesmarch.com, fill out the form, and volunteer, get involved. Uhuru, see you in DC, November 4th, Uhuru.
Uhuru, not one step back.
Not one step backwards.
Not one step back, not even a half step. Oh, you're muted, Comrade Nwezi.
I made a good joke too, but I won't repeat it. But I just wanted to say, yes, Uhuru Akinge, not one step backwards, forward to November 4th. And again, the other committees, we're going to have comrades come on in our future mobilizing meetings like this to give you more information about what each committee does. So we will, just for the sake of time, leave it there. But some committees that do need the support are people who maybe if you are not going to be at November 4th because you just are in another part of the world where that doesn't seem possible, but you can help with social media, or you got skills in radio and things like that, volunteer those skills. But we want everybody to get there, and we want to help you get there as well.
And let me just say 2 names of organizations that I also know will be there. The Black Alliance for Peace, Friends of the Congo, and I'll say more as they come to my head.
Uhuru, thank you, Sister Lisa. And you know what? I just want to say, I know that we made a call for donations and that donations are coming in. So we are getting very close to meeting our goal. And because we want to get out of here as soon as we can, we want to make sure that we let our fundraising appeal be as quick as possible. So continue to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. Comrades, we have a goal of raising 500 and we are over halfway there. I just want to say that. So I just want to appreciate those who have been donating for today's call. So what we're going to do is at this point, open it up. If there's no other questions or anything like that, I want to bring up, so Lisa, you're already here with me, and Comrade Penny, if you also wanted to add anything or any questions that you're seeing in the chat. We did have one question that came in during like the registration process for Zoom. So I thought it was a really important question. Last year was my first March on Washington. So I've only been one time before, but this may be a question that those who have been many times can answer. This was a question from Javon Tinsley, who is an organizational member with the Hands Off Uhuru Coalition. He says, what are the best, or they say, what are the best things to bring with you when traveling out of town to the Black People's March on the White House on November 4th? So if anybody from the coalition or those who have more experience want to add anything, please do.
My computer is acting up. I will say one thing that you'll want to check for, and we will be sure to be monitoring that, is the weather. Sometimes in DC, it could be, I've seen times when it was cold, like freezing cold, and I had to, have my hat, scarf, and all of that. And other times it could be very, very warm. So you would surely want to, be aware of the weather, sort of check that. And like I said, we'll be having it up on the website, any kind of, what we expect the weather to be. But that's one thing to watch for. And sometimes people might want to bring folding chairs. I wouldn't, now when people think about folding chairs, I think about Alabama. We ain't talking about those kind, but you see sometimes the cloth kind, something that you can carry easily with yourself, and maybe bring water. I mean, we'll try to, make sure we have certain things there, but something that you could put in your backpack or something like that. Comfortable shoes, 4 feet. Thank you so much. And medication, if you have any medication, but certainly comfortable shoes, definitely.
Yes, and that came from, thank you, Lisa. Those are great points. Last year it was warm when I went there, but I know prior years it's been off. And the comment about comfortable shoes and medications comes from our very own nurse, 4 feet, who is in St. Louis, who will be a part of the healthcare, volunteer team. So we just want to remind people to also consider that as well. And there was something else I was going to say to bring too. Some people have brought like a wagon that they bring, to put like jackets and coats and your placards and other things like that. We will be having placard, making, part or event on the night before, as well as the conference on the day after. So there's a lot of different activities that you can find out about by going to Black People's March.com, as well as hotel. If you have not booked your accommodations, now is a good time to go to the website to secure your hotel room, find a buddy or two to room with as well. Go ahead, comrade.
There was something I was about to say. It'll come to me. I'm just a little jet lagged still from this weekend.
Yes.
But yes. Also, you want to make sure that you bring backup batteries for your phones. That's really important because we're usually there all day, and you'll just want to make sure that you can have that extra charge.
Yes, right on. And then the last thing I see here too, well, actually, this was just the chat moderator. Thank you so much. Put in to go ahead and print the flyers for the march. So bring your flyers, bring your placards, bring the sticks, whatever else you got to bring. And again, Chairman here writes, if people are coming to the Friday pre-Valley event, you might want to bring materials to make political placards. So yes, like, poster boards, markers, anything that you normally bring, bring it on this march. And as well, we will be having t-shirts and other things for sale as well. So if you want to get any of that kind of gear too, we have some great shirts that are being made. So just very exciting, comrades. We will be putting this all out more over time. So for the sake of time, unless there's any other questions, put them in the chat. And again, we are saving the chat. We will answer your questions. I want to turn it over to our fundraising committee. These are comrades Jesse and Amanda, who are going to give us hopefully a very quick update on our fundraising efforts for today. And just really want to salute the people who have been contributing to this fight back as well, Uhuru. And I know the comrades may need just a moment to get in place. So I do want to acknowledge that as well. And but just let me know. I think they're on the ground in Aquaba Hall. So let me also just make the request to unmute and start your video as well. Uhuru. So Uhuru and Chairman says people may also be able to introduce other issues at the pre-rally event. Uhuru, Chairman, yes. We have a program, we have a program that will be put together at the march. We'll be meeting at Malcolm X Park, then we'll be marching to the White House and have another, rally there as well. And so there will be opportunities for us to, continue to discuss what issues need to be, a part of this fight back as well. So I see Comrade Jesse, one of the Uhuru 3, chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, here on the call, and Comrade Amanda, vice chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, on this call. Thank you, comrades. I will turn it over to you. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chair Mwezi, thank you so much. And this has been a powerful, powerful meeting. I just want to salute everybody who has presented today, especially Chairman Omali Shatella and also Jesus and Edelso and you, Chair Mwezi, and Chairwoman Penny, and just the incredible history and understanding that was provided by this event. And, we heard that what happened in Chile on September 11th, 1973 is referred to as the other 9/11. And I think what's clear is that that was the real 9/11. The thing that happened in the US was the other 9/11. The central thing is the struggle of colonized people. And I'm sure everyone remembers in the aftermath of what happened in New York and Washington, D.C. on September 11th, they would say, never forget, never forget. That was the slogan that was rammed down our throats over and over again. 9/11, never forget. And indeed, we will never forget the thousands of people in Chile who were disappeared, who were murdered, who were tortured. We will never forget Salvador Allende. We will never forget all of the African people who have fought and who have faced the brutal colonial state repression of this social system. We will never forget Hugo Chavez, and we will never forget the millions of people in Afghanistan and Iraq who were slaughtered and who suffered under US imperialist aggression and who fought and resisted so courageously up to this day. So I just want to salute this powerful event today. And I want to salute everybody who tuned in and donated, because we were supposed to come up here. I want to salute Comrade Amanda here from the fundraising team, who's going to tell us how much we've raised already. But we were supposed to come up here and raise $500, but let's take a look at how much we've already raised, Comrade Amanda.
Uhuru. Yes, first of all, I just want to appreciate this program as well, and all of the presenters that have come before us, just all the powerful statements, and appreciate everything that you just said as well, Jesse. So I want to thank the people that have contributed so far tonight are Leah, who gave $50, Keyanna, who gave $100, who gave that powerful statement earlier, Mark Friedman, who gave 20, Nduku Malumba, who gave 10, Raya, who gave 25, Sarah gave 50, Ruby gave 50, Maureen gave 25, Molly gave 50, Brendan gave 20, Desiree gave 50, and Paulina gave 20. And I'm going to pull up the website in a second to see if there's more, but with just those, we have raised $470 so far.
Wow, Uhuru.
And we want to never forget that after 9/11, when they were all standing around, it reminded us of the colonial struggle of us. They were singing, "We shall overcome."
Wow.
Indeed. Thank you, Chairman. Never forget.
Yep.
All right. So, Chairman Mwezi, do we have time to quickly run through our slides here? Okay. So again, we are speaking to you here from the Hands Off Uhuru Fundraising Committee. And as was mentioned, I am also part of the Uhuru 3, one of the Uhuru 3, and I am proud to stand with my leadership, Chairman Omali Shatella and Chairwoman Penny Hess in this fight back against this vicious attack on the chairman, on the party, on the right of African people to fight and organize and win their liberation, on free speech for Chairman Omali Shatella, which is an attack on free speech for everybody. And before continuing, I want to salute Keyanna Jones, who spoke earlier as well, and the fact that she gave $100 after reporting to us that people in Atlanta are being indicted for money laundering and charity fraud and RICO charges for what? Donating to their bail fund, donating to their legal defense fund. And over a year ago, Chairman Omali Shatella said that when you donate to Hands Off Uhuru, your donation is an act of resistance. And that is a clear example of that. that in the face of an obvious attempt by the United States government to scare and intimidate you away from wanting to donate to things like the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, Keyanna Jones stood up and said, here's $100 towards this fund tonight. So that was a really powerful stand. Not one step backwards. And I also just want to express my solidarity with the Stop Cop City 61 activists who faced those indictments, and am very confident that under the leadership of the anti-colonial free speech movement, that all of these attacks will be defeated, and it will take the world closer and closer towards liberation for all of humanity. So, so on to the next slide here. So we are almost to the end of phase one, thanks to the incredible outpouring of unity and support from thousands of people who have stood up and gone to handsoffuhuru.org/donate since July 29th of last year and contributed now $243,376 towards this legal fund.
And we want to also appreciate from tonight, Penny Hess, one of the Uhuru 3 who gave 20, MQ who gave $20 as well, and then Nduku who gave another $10. So that does $20 above our goal for tonight, but like Jesse just showed, the first phase of this goal does have another about $40,000 to raise, and every single dollar that you give and have given so far, whether it's been $2 or $70,000, has been part of this fight back against the brutal oppression of the US government. And what we want to do is make a list, which we already have a list of thousands of people that have donated, but we want that list to expand, because what's happening is that the US government is going to handsoffuhuru.org/donate, and they are seeing the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that support this campaign, that are joining this coalition. And that is what we want to continue to grow. So everything that you can give tonight, whether it is $2 or $70,000 or more, is a message to the US government that you are not going to stand for this oppression of the right of African people to fight for their own liberation.
Uhuru. And your donations have made it possible for Hands Off Uhuru to hire a brilliant legal team who are gearing up for its September 28th for the hearing in Tampa to kick the ass of the ruling class, to defeat these bogus charges and fight all the way towards victory. As you can see from this pie chart, almost every dollar donated so far has gone towards the legal fund. And there are other expenses as well associated with waging this campaign: travel, printing, holding events, holding conferences, even holding a march in Washington, D.C. All of this takes resources. So we just want to salute everybody who's contributed and show you what the money has gone towards, but also say that funds are still needed for legal expenses. The legal expenses are not over. If this does go to trial, that will involve things like expert witnesses, court transcripts, more travel, research, and things like that. So the funds are still needed for that. But even in the meantime, the Hands Off Uhuru campaign is gearing up to launch an even more aggressive counteroffensive in the legal arena to challenge the fact that the FBI has now denied or ignored multiple requests, but from the Freedom of Information Act, to release their files on the chairman, Chairwoman Penny Hess, myself, and Director Akile, the 4 people initially characterized as unindicted co-conspirators. What are they hiding? What is it that the US government, the FBI, does not want the public to see? That they are illegally smothering this Freedom of Information Act request and engaging in this blatant cover-up to conceal this information from the public. So in order to find out the answer, in order to force them to have to answer that question, we are in the process of gearing up to file lawsuits against the FBI for denying or ignoring for months and months and months these Freedom of Information Act requests, which will require at least $5,000 to retain the counsel necessary to do that. So again, the legal fight back is ongoing. That is what you are supporting when you go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And funds are also still needed for campaign expenses, as I mentioned, printing, banners, travel, administrative expenses, all of the hard work that goes on every single day to keep this campaign running. is what you are supporting when you go to handsoffuhuru.org. So today's goal was $500, and so far we have raised
$520.
$520. So let's keep it going. Let's double it. Let's get to $1,000 tonight. Go to handsoffahuru.org/donate and put in your contribution. If everybody here put in another $10, or if you haven't donated yet, go ahead and put in $10. We will surpass that goal and have raised over $1,000. So we want to wrap this up with some givebacks.
Uhuru. So first of all, I just want to appreciate Sydney, who gave $20. So Sydney picked us up $540. So yes, everyone that donates, if you send us your address, we will be able to send you this button. Hands off Chairman Amalia Shatella. You can go to the next slide. The special give back for today is to the first person that gives $500. So this will get you a signed copy of The Verdict is In, Reparations Now. This is the testimonies from the 1982 World Tribunal. We can have that signed for you by Chairman Amalia Shatella. And yeah, so if you want this book signed, we can get that for you today. And then anyone that gives $1,000 or more, we will get you this very cool backpack of Harriet Tubman. So a very, very unique gift there as well for anyone that gives $1,000
today.
Today.
Limited time only.
Yes. And then finally, we do want to just put out to everybody that maybe you can't give $1,000 today, but you can give $84 over the course of a year. You can become a sustainer of this coalition, and sustaining this work is really significant. It allows the coalition and the Hands Off Uhuru to know that every single month a certain amount of funds will be coming in to be able to have something on hand in case there is an emergency where we need to travel to Florida, or something that urgently needs to be printed and distributed as soon as possible. It really makes a significant impact, anything that you can give.
So we would just want to close out by saying this is a salute to Chair Mwezi for this graphic here. Make your money march for you. Not everybody may be able to join every demonstration or come to every meeting, but your money speaks for you when you go to handsoffahuru.org/donate. So we want to thank everybody who has contributed. Again, go to handsoffahuru.org/donate. I'm sure we'll be able to announce before this meeting is over tonight our total amount raised. Let's get to $1,000 and continue to build this incredible anti-colonial free speech movement under the leadership of African and colonized people to demand drop the charges against the Uhuru 3, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, and we will see you in Washington, D.C. on November 4th. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru. I'm so excited, comrades. We're gonna this is gonna be fun. What we say, we're gonna kick the ass of the ruling class, and we're gonna have fun doing it. Comrade Sister Lisa, I know you wanted to say something, and I see Comrade the People's Alderman Jesse Todd, whose hand is up. And so I do want to just acknowledge both of you comrades. One comment that's in the chat, and then we're going to move towards announcements. But I want to really appreciate comrades Jesse and Amanda for that great, really informative appeal, and the people for helping us surpass our goal and possibly even double our goal on today. So Uhuru, Sister Lisa.
I just wanted to remind people to please go to the handsoffahuru.org website and click on products, because they got some dynamic shirts and things you're gonna want. We know that the weather is changing, at least in the Northeast, so you're gonna need the hoodies and all of that. They just have some beautiful products and shirts and stuff like that. So please remember to go to them, to go to that area of the website as well. Uhuru.
Yes.
Comrade Mwezi.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm gonna give $100.
Hey.
And so I want to just remind all the listening audiences that these donations are tax deductible. So so they could so anyone that deduct that taxes could give, rather than giving the money to the government that is taking our money, doing absolutely nothing for us, but taking our money and using it to overthrow some governments around the world, as well as building up the police force. So we need to use that money, deduct any amount of money we can deduct, and just all we have to do is raise our pencil and and write a check and then deduct it. And so that money, there will be some money the government won't get.
Right on.
Uhuru, comrade.
Uhuru,
great idea.
Yes, I want to really appreciate you. Just for those of you who don't know, that was the People's Alderman, as we call him, Jesse Todd, who is out of St. Louis and who is a member of the Uhuru movement. We just really want to appreciate you and thank you for that reminder. It is 100% tax deductible through our fiscal sponsor, Open Collective. And so thank you so much for that $100 contribution. So I know that takes us, we are at 600 and something now, I know for sure. So thank you, Comrade Jesse. And as Lisa said, handsoffahuru.org/shop. That's how you can get all of the t-shirts and the sweaters and things like that. So I do want to appreciate another comment that was in the chat. There are so many that I can't read, but just when the chairman opened up the question for other types of demands and issues that we want to take, to the government, Comrade Nduku put one in here that I just wanted to read as we move towards close. They said that I would like to bring up the issue that Dedan, that the Kenyan government is not releasing Dedan Kimanti's remains, coordinating to clear it up with his family, the international issue of African internationalism. Kimanti was buried, shackled, and his family would like to give him an honorable burial because he is still not free even in death. And if we understand, the Uhuru movement, was birthed out of the Kenyan Land Freedom Army's struggle, and Uhuru was the cry of the people, which, for those who don't know, Uhuru means freedom. So we are not playing around. We are taking this, all the way, and we mean freedom in a practical, real sense. And so I just want to appreciate you, comrade, and everybody for being on this call. So I have just like one last slide that I'm going to show with just all of the events that are coming up. These are going to be put on the handsoffahuru.org/events page. And I know our Zoom techs weren't expecting me to say that. So, and it's not the most prettiest slide either, but it has dates and information, and I want people to just see it. And then we can go ahead and talk about it more. So, and actually I can even share if I need to. Okay, yeah. So it's on the slideshow that we were using before. I'm just going to read off a few dates for everybody to just make note of. handsoffahuru.org/events. And so on September 28th, again, the hearing for the oral arguments in the Tampa Middle District Federal Courthouse. That's at 801 Florida Avenue in Tampa, Florida. Get there. This information will be up on the website tonight. Also, the chairman is going on a Northern Region book tour to tour the Reparations Now book. So this Saturday, September 16th, he will be at the One Africa, One Nation Farmers Market in Philadelphia. On September 18th, the following Monday, we'll be at the Uhuru Furniture Store in Philadelphia for an event called An Evening with Chairman Omali Yeshitela. On Thursday of next week, a book signing with Chairman Omali Yeshitela at Source of Knowledge Bookstore. If any of you are in Newark, New Jersey, you will find the chairman there. The Harlem Book Fair at the Harlem State Office Building on 125th in New York City. That will be taking place on Saturday, the 23rd. Sunday, the 24th, an evening with Chairman again, this will be at the Brownsville African Heritage Center Museum in the district with Representative, our City Councilman Charles Barron. This is in Brooklyn, New York. And then upcoming events of this coalition, we will see you all again on the 20th of September, again in October for 2 more events as we build towards November 4th. And we look forward to seeing this coalition, this mobilization, this call for the 15th annual Black People's March on the White House grow exponentially. And as we say, we are not going back, not one step backwards. So comrades, I'm saving the chat right now as I promised. And I just want to say, Uhuru, we are winning.
Yes, we are. We are winning.
Yes, we are winning. Uhuru comrades, thank you all so much. We will see you soon. And forward to November 4th, Black People's March on the White House. All power to the people.
Power to the people.
Yes, and Black power to the African nation. Uhuru comrades.
Black power, Uhuru.
Uhuru. Venceremos.
Viva la revolution.
Uhuru. Uhuru.
Uhuru.